Hello everyone, welcome to my weekly recap of training for the Ultra Trail Australia 100 kilometer Ultra Trail. Right now it's week 5 of 2024, which means we've entered February. Now January was quite a big month because I ran 700k with well over 8,000 meters of elevation gain. And in this video I want to share a few things that I do to avoid injury while running well over 100 miles per week. Now when I say avoid, I mean try to avoid, because there will always be a risk. But last week was a really good example of a week in which my legs were a little bit tight, had some tight spots, and if I hadn't done what I do, it would probably evolve into an injury. So here are a few things I do to minimize the risk of injuries. First of all, I think the most important thing for me is to be in tune with my body, which basically means being aware of all the muscles you have and the fact that they become tight when you run. So sometimes it's necessary to loosen them up. This starts with just feeling your legs after you finish the run. So I just feel my calves, all my muscles in my legs, to see if there are any spots that need some more attention. And then based on what I feel, I will do some stretches or massage them for a little bit. I think being in tune with my body has been the most helpful way. Just being aware of all those muscles that become tight and could become a problem in the future. One of my favorite ways to be in tune with my body is using this little ball, and I think it's called a Lacrosse ball. And I lay it on the floor and I use it to roll over it with my feet, with the bottom of my feet. The first time I did that, I suddenly realized how tight that area was, and it loosened up really quickly when I did that. And somehow your whole leg relaxes a bit when you roll over that little ball. So that's one thing I do every day. Even when I'm sitting at a desk, I have this thing on the floor and I use it to massage the bottom of my feet, and it seems to help. Another thing I try to do every day is stretching. Now I have to admit, I really suck at stretching. I just cannot find the motivation or the discipline to do it, but somehow it works when I do it while I'm watching a movie or a podcast. Then I sit on the couch and I try to use that time to stretch my body while I distract myself with other things, because otherwise it's just too boring. But stretching, especially my glute muscles, really helps, because that can become a tight area, and if you have tight glutes, it will affect your whole running stride. In terms of the running part itself, which is the thing I spent the most time on, I just try to take it easy. So you probably heard of this 80-20 rule. 80% of your running easy, 20% hard. I don't get to the 20% hard. I think it's more like 90% easy, 10% hard if I reach that 10%. So I just try to take it easy. I don't really look at heart rate that much, but with easy I mean around 70% of my max heart rate. So that is what I usually aim for, or what I see afterwards when I do easy runs. What I also try to do every week is some strength training. And I don't go to the gym, it's only body weight. And maybe strength training is not even the right word. It's more create stability in my legs. One thing I realized over the years is that running is a single-legged sport. So each time you land, it's on one leg. So the more stable that leg is, the more efficient. And that's important because it has to carry a lot of weight in each step. I try to do some light stability exercises every day. It's basically just balancing on one leg, but I also train my calf muscles, which is important here because I'm running a lot of elevation and that's pretty hard on your calves. So, all these exercises that I do are really simple, they're really basic, and although I do not have empirical evidence, it does seem to make a big difference when you do it consistently. Another thing that I started doing since I'm here in Australia is going for a swim directly after my runs. Now this is kind of unique that I'm so close to a beach right now. It's like a few hundred meters from where I'm staying. So every morning after my run I go for a swim, and it's just overall nice because you are sweating a lot, and if you just take one dive into the sea, all your sweat is gone and you immediately stop sweating, and somehow it feels as if you are recovered. I don't have any evidence for that, but it's just intuitive and it feels really nice to end your run that way. I think this approach to running on a faster pace for less than 10% of my total mileage is also contributing to avoiding injuries. Because I'm not fixed to a certain schedule that I have to do, like I have these sessions on this day and I have to do them, I have to hit these targets. Of course it can be helpful for people, but for me, when I'm running high mileage, I don't want to stick to such a schedule because you can just outrun yourself, I guess, and do things that are not really healthy at that moment. So I just do it based on how I feel. Just try to do a faster session and just see how it goes. I think that really helps in avoiding injuries. The last thing I do to avoid injuries is taking one day off. For me that's on Sunday. Mentally I don't like it, but I think it's good to give my legs 48 hours of rest. I do some active recovery, so I do like a bike ride or something, but not too crazy. And I try to spend more time on stretching, being in tune with my body, because I have extra time because I don't run. Maybe you expect me to say something about diet as well, because diet seems to be important in the process of recovery. But I'm not really interested in sharing anything about diet because I just don't feel qualified to do that. And what interests me about social media is that a lot of people seem really keen on sharing advice on diet. And there's a lot of different advices, I can tell you. And also contradicting advices. But I don't always understand why people do that. Especially if they're not really into nutrition science or stuff like that. In general, I don't try to share advice, I just try to show what I do to give some insight for the people who are interested. Another week in the books. Just finished my long run on Saturday, 34 kilometers. Ended up with a total of 163 kilometers, so just over 100 miles. Try to make that 100 mile per week the baseline, and around 1800 meters of elevation. So just another week of good training. So tomorrow I will take a rest day and spend some extra time on stretching, massaging, tuning in with my body to make sure I'm ready to go again on Monday.